Today we're looking at 10 stash plays for Dynasty Fantasy Football to hoard on your roster. Some of these are for the short term, some of these are for the long term, some of these are speculative plays, some of these players you just want to set on fire, but we're going to cover them here today so you can see the advanced metrics to see what you want to do with your Dynasty Fantasy Football teams. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're helping you build your Dynasty teams every day. Whether it's looking at college players, whether it's helping you with the NFL draft, whether it's just looking at these players, looking at the values, looking at the market, so you get a good idea and understanding of player values. Click that button. Stop missing out. We're going to start with the first player today, and we're going old. We're going old, but we're going cheap. Adam Thielen. Why are we going old and cheap? Because you need production right now. You're trying to catch it on the cheap. Wide receiver 85 in ADP, 186 off the board. So he's free, and the target should dip a little bit with Deontay Johnson. It should, but we should still get some volume. We should be getting some decent weeks out of him. Let's take the front half of the season away and look at the back half. If you're getting a wide receiver that's posting 15, 15, 12, 15, and those are spotty performances on those weeks, and you're catching them at wide receiver 85 value, I think you're going to like that if you're a win now team, if you're competitive. Had 1,000 yards last year. That may not happen this year. He's older, you got more competition in offense, but Bryce Young, another year of development, a new offense, should be a little bit more explosive. This team's trying to build, trying to get better. This team should be more efficient. Adam Thielen could post these numbers again. Could be productive again. I do not see 103 catches. I don't see that. But probably 18, 19, 20% target share or so. Probably getting you some production. 8.4 targets per game is kind of high. But if you look at what you're seeing on the back end of the season in this chart below me in the production, if you get that for a full year at wide receiver 85, and you get to sprinkle that into your lineups here and there when injuries hit, you're not going to hate it, especially if you're competing and you nail one of those spike weeks. You're not going to hate it. And if you're a non-competing team and he starts being productive, or the Panthers offense starts reeling off production, you might be able to sell him for more than wide receiver 85, maybe just a little bit. It would be a very, very small deal, but those deals inched up over multiple years, multiple times, add to your value. On top of that, we're seeing a rise in his ADP. We're seeing that rise up a little bit. As you saw the month prior down the chart below me, he was a little bit lower. He's rising up slowly and surely. So if you have him on your team and you're not a win now team, maybe you're middle of the road, you have him there on the back end of your roster, maybe come August time, people start looking at last year's stats. People start looking at what's coming up in the season. They know he's going to be on the field. They know there's going to be some potential here. They know Bryce Young likes to look at him. Maybe you can get a sell on him. Maybe you can get some picks out of him. But if you're a win now team, he's great for the back end of your roster because he's so cheap. Chase Brown's RB47, ADP 153, but 1.2 targets a game, but limited action. The back end of the season's when he let it rip there. He had that 19.5 game there against Indy, but we saw him rip off some long gains. We got good size adjusted athleticism. Zach Moss is there to share the workload, but Joe Mixon's gone. Someone's got to take over this backfield. The market's scared to invest in any one of these running backs. We talked about Zach Moss a few weeks ago, and he's cheap. Chase Brown's cheap. This offense is not cheap. It's very explosive. If one of these running backs hit, or both these running backs marginally hit, you're going to get a return on investment. You're going to get some spike weeks at least. So you're catching them at RB47 price tag, about 15 round ADP, 14 round ADP, somewhere around there. A cheap get. And if you're playing money ball with the running backs, this guy you're looking at, he's young, productive out of college, good size adjusted athleticism. We got an ambiguous backfield here. Redraft, underdog, best ball, whatever you're looking at here. A cheap get with a lot of upside. Odell Beckham, 114 ADP. From the grave. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. But we want to rewind back to last year in season and rewind back the redraft. He was a pickup off waivers on some weeks. You look at the production last year, that's with Baltimore. A lower volume passing offense with him getting spotty production. An 8 out of 13.9, getting downfield targets. Sticky hand still. He's getting opportunity with Baltimore there. That was productive. What's going to happen with Miami? What if something happens to Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle? Because injuries happen. What if he's got to step up? What if he's got to be used more? He's free. He might even be on waivers right now. And he could be a pickup, especially if you're hurting at wide receiver. You're looking at some depth. And we're all in on the Dolphins offense. So you want any of these ancillary jabronis. And he's an ancillary jabroni right now. But he can be productive in flashes. He showed that last year. That's not a lie. It happened last year. He can be productive in flashes. He's in an offense that can fuel that. He's free on ADP. He's down there. The market's not spiking up on him at all. What we saw at minicamp was just him out there catching some balls, looking okay. We'll know more come training camp. But a speculative ad right now, if you're looking for a free wide receiver, J.K. Dobbins. We're here again on this rodeo. But Gus Edwards looking good for training camp. Should be back from that injury. But when he got injured, people were looking at Vital. People were looking at Spiller. People were looking at Dobbins. What we hear from the media, from the Chargers, is to be looking out for J.K. Dobbins. Looking out for him because he's looking good on the field. He's flashy. He's got speed. He's got pop on the step. We don't have pads on yet. On top of that, when you hear the media talk about players from minicamp, OTAs, training camp, remember, only parts of those practices they have access to. They do not have access to the whole practice, just a little bit. So when they get to see practice, it's only like 20 minutes. When they get those highlight clips, and it's the same one, different angles that I'm posting up on here, it's from 20 minutes of practice. They're not getting the full thing. They're not seeing everything. So you got to take everything with a grain of salt. We're also seeing a jump in his ADP. His value might jump in August. So if he's sitting there on your team, you might get a return on investment there. Maybe not. I think the market's going to sit on their hands. Vital's there. A lot of people love him. A lot of people love him. He's a good speculative ad off this roster. But this is an ambiguous backfield. Gus Edwards, healthy is the man here because he's efficient. He's proven to be efficient. He's a dog between the tackles. He's a guy to keep on the lookout for. J.K. Dobbins, RB50 price tag. Because you're not paying RB48. You're looking to get him cheaper. RB50 or more, I'm fine with it because you're in speculative asset range. But there might be other ones that I like better. That being said, we're looking at Keat Mitchell. RB49 price tag on ADP, 158 off the board, and he's been dead to a lot of people due to the knee injury. I don't look for him to be productive or use that much in 2024. We got Derrick Henry there. But what's going to happen in the back half of the season? What if Derrick Henry catches the Ravens' curse with the injuries? What if that happens and Keat Mitchell's back? They love Keat Mitchell. We talked about this ad nauseum throughout the entire season. Look what he did last year. 20-point game, 13-point game, 10-point game, a 10-point game. On the field, not getting a ton of workload. But this is a guy that is a home run threat on the field. All he needs is 2 touches, and he can give you a splash week. That's all he needs. He does not need a full workload. I don't think we want him getting a full workload. I think him and Derrick Henry paired together long term with Lamar Jackson. On the long term, that's nasty. That's scary. Keat Mitchell getting healthy could be another asset. On top of that, you should have sold during that time period. During the spike week, that was probably a good time to sell. Get yourself a 2nd-round pick, 3rd-round pick if you could. But now he's on your roster. He's sitting there. What are you going to do if you want to sell? You got to hold or just dump. That's the 2 options you got. I might as well hold because this is a run-heavy offense. The running backs get nicked up in this offense all the time. Conspiracy theory or not, it happens. We see it. Even with him, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, you can just rattle off names. He'll eventually be back from the injury. I just look for it to be slower than expected because it was late in the season. Last game of the season? We covered that on the channel. We looked at that. We watched it happen. But Keat Mitchell, very explosive 4.3 speed. The team loves him. If he's on the field, he's a home run threat. Trey Surman, and the news is buzzing with this guy. It's off-season buzz. Could be the RB2 on this team. But remember, we're not in training camp yet. We don't have the pads on yet, but he's a very efficient running back. He gets it done between the tackles. That's what coaches like, especially for an RB2 behind Jonathan Taylor. Remember, Evan Hall's coming back from an injury, so we got to see what's up with him. But Trey Surman could be just that dependable running back. I don't know if you want the RB2 here. I don't know, but RB86 off the board on the back end of your roster, I really don't care. I don't care. I'm not excited about him. But if it happens, it happens. But there are multiple reports that he could be the backup here in Indy. I would just watch out in training camp. If you want to speculate prior to training camp and then dump after training camp, that might be a stock move you may want to do if you want to acquire 4th round picks or something like that. But again, if you're inching like that, then that's something you may want to do to add to your portfolio. Izzy Abanikanda coming off the board, RB85. And the thing is, this depth chart, look at it. Breece Hall, Izzy, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, who they drafted this year, Tyreek Cohen, who's had some pop-off weeks before, and then Xavier Valade. The thing about this running back depth chart, it is now congested. What are they going to do with him? They were not in love with him in the season. He was not getting opportunities. He did have some moments in training camp last year. Good pop off the step. A lot of people loved his draft profile. So if he hits the road, where's he going to go? Where's he going to go, and will that add to his value? So he's a speculative play just to see what happens in that aspect. Right before training camp, we get through training camp, say everybody gets out of there healthy with the running backs. They got to make cuts. Is he going to be on a new team come the start of the season? Is he a running back that you want to make a speculative ad with? John Mechie, come back from the ACL, come back from leukemia, looking good for minicamp. We had him on the last video like this, because I want to hammer this home that he's looking good at minicamp. He is excelling. He's a good route runner. He's very efficient. And again, he's going to be behind Nico, Stephon, and Tank. But him versus Robert Woods, Noah Brown, long term, could be a sneaky play. This team saw a lot of injuries last year at the wide receiver spot. They were really jumping chairs last year due to the injuries. He might get some opportunity middle of the season. If you're looking for a speculative ad at wide receiver that's free, because he doesn't even have ADP, maybe you want to look at John Mechie. Another free player here is Chris Rodriguez. And you got Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson right in front of him, but he's nasty between the tackles. He's very efficient running the ball. He was very productive at Kentucky. With his dependability, he could be productive in short spurts, and if you're looking for a running back like that, then you might be able to catch him on the cheap. You might be able to pick him up off waivers in season, but he's a guy to pay attention to. Kenny McIntosh, a guy with a lot of upside. The team loves him. The team loves him. He catches the ball well out of the backfield. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet dealt with injuries last year. Kenneth Walker dealt with injuries the year prior. The thing is that these running backs get nicked up. McIntosh could be getting some opportunities. He's good out of the passing game. He's explosive. He's a home run threat in those regards when he gets the ball in space. He's a good speculative ad for the back end of your roster. You can only have 1 or 2 of these guys, so pick your poison. That's why we're covering these guys every week. But Kenny McIntosh, though, nobody's thinking about him. Nobody's drafting him. He can even be sitting on waivers, and you just have your finger on the trigger. You don't have to pick him up, but you have to watch for him in training camp. He's going to catch buzz in training camp. If he's healthy on the field, you're going to hear news about him in training camp looking good. You're going to hear news about a 3-headed monster. You're going to hear about that. We heard about that last year. Then he got hurt and he was out most of the year. Now he's an afterthought, but we're going into training camp now. You're going to hear about Kenny McIntosh. Pay attention to him in training camp. This is a move you may want to make. This might be a move you may want to make now and then sell during or after training camp if you're not that much into it. It could be a speculative play in those regards. But those are 10 stash plays that we're looking at right now. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.